Okay. All right. We were having a few technical difficulties with Instagram. So right now we are running on three different platforms, but two of them are on Facebook. And I want to thank anybody who might be watching tonight. This is Tuesday, Truth Talk Tuesday, Late Night Live. And I am Kay, also known as KW McCabe. So tonight is again Truth Talk Tuesday, where we talk positivity and purpose. And what I would like to discuss tonight is sort of the second part of the series that we began last week when we discussed positivity through purpose. So, just to introduce myself again, I'm Kay, also known as KW McCabe. I have a master's in forensic psychology and a master's in counseling psychology. I first graduated with my BA from California. I, when I went there, it was called Cal State Hayward University. It's now called CSU East Bay. And I received my BA in psychology from there. And from after that, I went to Holy Names University, where I received both of my masters in forensic psychology and counseling psychology. So, what I would like to discuss has a lot of basis in psychological theory and practice, and it really is simply just techniques that anybody can use on a daily basis. Basically grounding yourself in positivity and discovering how to utilize that through your purpose in your daily life. So I'm going to start out by putting this on the stage. And tonight, as we've said, we're going to discuss executing your purpose through positivity and manifesting that positivity in your daily life. So, again, I'm KW McCabe. I am an author. I've also written several books, and you can find them probably listed through the page, as well as the contact for the page if you have any questions. So, moving on. So, what we want to discuss is how do you execute your purpose through positivity? Now, why is it important to know what your purpose is? Some people might say, why is it important to know, like whether I have a purpose or not? It is important. Now, what exactly does positivity have to do with your purpose? And how do you discover your purpose? If you already know your purpose, how do you stay grounded? How do you enact positivity intentionally? And how do you recognize negativity and combat it? So finally, at the end, we will discuss how to manifest positivity, making the choice to overflow light into others and affirm your place on this plane. So the first thing we want to go through is, first of all, discuss why you should have a purpose, or why everyone has a purpose, because everyone does have a purpose. If you are on this earth, you are here for something. You are here for a purpose. And well, you might wonder, what does a purpose mean? What exactly is the definition of a purpose? Well, if you go on Google, basic definition, the activity or cause that gives meaning, weight, and value to your existence. It is the thing, the person, the ideal, the cause, the action or belief that gives you the reason to keep moving on this plane of existence. So, a lot of the time, if you don't feel that you have a purpose, your sense of wellness, your sense of, um, health of of mind, basically your sense of stability on this earth, you might ask yourself, why am I here? That might be because you don't know what your purpose is. So, why is purpose necessary? Without purpose, life becomes unfulfilling, dreary, simply about feeling good in the moment, or about pleasing yourself instead of focusing your mind and heart on something greater. Purpose sustains when there is nothing else to live for. So, all of us as human beings, we have something within us that craves to do something bigger, that craves to do something that has a lasting effect. And if we have been, um, um, you know, sort of grounded in a healthy sense of self, we will want to do things that better our environment, that better the people around us, right? We will want to do things that create a positive effect on our world, on our planet, on the people around us. Now, what does positivity have to do with your purpose? Your purpose, once you have chosen it or discover it, will require your space, your time, and your energy. Whatever that thing or person or idea or cause is going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of focus. You're going to want to throw yourself into it. Why? Because it's part of who you are, right? It will require passion and drive. And passion and drive burn emotional, psychological, and physical energy in a way that must be replenished. Positivity activates the neurochemical aspect of your brain's reward system: dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. We discussed this in the previous discussion about this, right? These chemicals are absolutely necessary for focus, memory, creativity, and emotional regulation. Now, remember, the brain requires certain neurochemical activity in order to remain stable and to be able to have stable executive function. We discussed this last time. Positivity acts as the reward system for your purpose when you are discouraged or want to give up. Positivity allows you to look at the greater picture instead of getting caught up and lost in the details. So, a lot of times we might focus on the tiniest things that are distracting us, focus on the smallest things that are making us unhappy. And if instead you focus on maintaining a positive state of mind, you are then able to become more objective and see the situation more objectively, and to see the greater picture, to see the bigger purpose of the situation, right? Positivity also boosts executive function, as we discussed. But remember, burnout is real. And what is burnout? Burnout is basically when you're exhausted with doing even the things that you love to do and you're just tired. Self care is essential to maintaining positivity, because without it, your gas will run out. Remember, your inner strength, your emotion, your joy, your passion, your focus must constantly be replenished. And the way that you do that, especially if you've been overworking yourself to the point of burnout, is self care. How to discover your purpose. For some people, it is clear to them when they are very young what their purpose is. They might find out from the moment that they lay a pen to the paper that writing is their joy, it's their purpose. Or they might find out from the moment they grab mom's paints and paint the wall that that is what they were meant to do, right? For others, it is a struggle to find their place. And for those who struggle to know what their purpose is, these suggestions may provide assistance. What do you love to do? What makes you feel intensely? What gives you joy? What makes you determined? The cause, the activity, the action that brings you the most determination, the most focus, the most passion, that is your purpose. Examples are teaching, even parenting, fixing things, building things, working with people, teamwork, leading, creating, all of these things. If you have a passion and a drive and an unending interest in these things, that is a part of your purpose. For those with many skills and passions, finding one thing to focus on as your purpose might feel difficult. But the point, if you have many skills and passions, isn't to focus on one skill. It's to focus on how you can use your skills to great effect, right? So, one of the things that you might experience if you're a jack of all trades or a Jane of all trades, you might have skills in many different areas. You might have interests in many different things, right? So then your purpose is to utilize all of your interests to greater effect on the world around you. One, who are you blessing with your skills, your passion, and your abilities? Are you making the world a better, more positive place? Do you bring joy to those around you? That would be a part of your purpose. Because say you have the ability to build things, the ability to teach how to build things, and the ability to make things beautiful. You could take all of those skills and teach others, or just create beauty for others in order to make the world a better place. For those who are neurodivergent, like myself, especially those with ADHD, we tend to find a new cause, a new skill, and a new passion every other week, especially if you have ADHD or if you're on the spectrum. You might find yourself hyper focusing and studying things to no end, right? You might find a new passion or something that you research obsessively, and you find new interests all the time. But the same point still stands. If you have many skills and passions, the point isn't to focus on one skill. Focus instead on how you can positively affect those around you. Number one, how can you use your ability, your knowledge, and your energy to give kindness to others, right? Because especially if you have the drive to constantly study, to constantly gather information, to constantly suck in new data, you have a mind that is full of information that can be utilized to make the world a better place, right? How are you making your environment a more positive and mindful space, right? If or when you experience overwhelm, do you lash out in spite, in negativity, or engage in self care so that you can stay emotionally healthy and also protect others? Now, one thing that we always need to remember is that when you reach the edge of burnout, it becomes very, very easy to lash out at others. Why? Because you're tired. You don't have the self control you normally have. That's almost normal, right? But as you know, as caring human beings who are moving through the world trying to exist in a positive frequency, we don't want to lash out. What we want to do is learn how to care for ourselves so that we can increase our own ability to provide that type of positivity towards others. Once you know your purpose, what drives you, staying centered and grounded will be the only thing that keeps you from total collapse and burnout. Now, what does this mean? Well, staying grounded is the ability to hold on to a cohesive and healthy sense of oneself, to maintain emotional and mental stability, and retain a healthy connection to reality, even through difficult and often stressful situations. Now, what happens when you have found your purpose? Sometimes, especially if you have just newly found your purpose, or if you are, consistently trying to build on your purpose, you throw yourself into it 1000%, right? And that will burn you out. It will drain you. And if you do not provide care for yourself, you will start to fracture emotionally, psychologically, sometimes physically. And so staying grounded is part of the way that you maintain a healthy sense of self. When you give too much of yourself, you're basically giving pieces of yourself away and not replenishing. You're not going to be able to maintain a healthy sense of self if you don't have boundaries. If you don't say, no, I need to take time for me. I can't give 1000% of myself. I can't belong to everybody. I have to belong to myself and heal first and then give again, right? That's part of self-care, is holding boundaries, is maintaining a healthy and cohesive sense of self. That is staying grounded. Positivity versus negativity, the never ending battle. Once you have determined your purpose, you will be inundated with both minor and major frustrations. That's just life, right? Like if you are alive, you're going to get frustrated. Sorry. But how do you react? With intentional positivity, or do you lash out with spite, vitriol, poison, and negativity? Right? And remember, this is what we discussed just a second ago. When you start to get burned out, it might become more and more difficult not to lash out. It might become more and more difficult not to take that out on others. But as human beings who are moving through the world, who have purpose, if you have purpose and your purpose is to make the world a better place, then the best thing to do when you're reaching that burnout point is to engage in self-care. Remember, positive thoughts, speech, actions carve themselves into the neurochemical functions and transmitters of your brain, and they have the ability to affect your mood, your cognition, that's your thoughts, and even your energy levels. Your thoughts are frequencies, and they affect your brain, and your brain affects your body. That's how it works. That's science. right? We know this. That's why it's so important to guard our thoughts, to guard our speech, to guard our actions. While your emotions might feel as though engaging in negative thoughts or behaviors might feel good, right? Like we all want to cuss somebody out sometimes. I mean, let's be honest, right? We all want to do that. But in the long run, those actions trigger cortisol and ongoing stress within your body, aging you quickly and draining your life force unnecessarily. Remember, negativity always hurts you more than it hurts the other person. For example, if somebody cuts in front of you in traffic, yes, you're angry. Yes, you're frustrated. But if you immediately start chasing that person down, now all of a sudden your body is flooded with cortisol. Now all of a sudden you're enraged. What that is doing is actually putting stress on your body and your brain to the point where you are slowly aging faster than normal. That's what it does. And at the same time, you might get a ticket. The other person might get away. You have hurt yourself and not the other person. Recognize when and which. So, how do you recognize and hold on to positivity? So this one is interesting, right? Because we all think that we know what positivity is, right? We all think that everyone should know what positivity looks like, but that's not always the case. It's not. Not everyone was planted, born, raised in positive environments, right? We understand this. Not everybody was raised in a healthy atmosphere, in a healthy situation, a healthy state of being. Not everybody was. So here's how to recognize positivity. Do you have the urge to uplift or cause pain and destruction? Do you know how to recognize when someone is saying or doing something for you that brings you feelings of safety, contentment, joy? Are you able to do or say things for others that causes them to feel safe and also gives you feelings of fulfillment in the action? So when we say things in order to uplift people, there should be a corresponding feeling of contentment, of fulfillment and satisfaction within ourselves. Why? Because we are mirroring the action. Giving joy brings joy. That is the transactional nature of the world. That's how it works. Thinking, feeling, saying, doing things that cause feelings of safety, contentment, peace, or goodwill are ways to engage in intentional positivity. So when you tell yourself, say, for example, let's use the traffic incident, right? Somebody cuts you off. Instead of chasing them down the road and possibly getting into an accident or getting a ticket, you tell yourself, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to tell myself positive affirmations. Yes, this traffic is driving me really irritated and angry and crazy, but I'm going to think of positive things. When I get home, I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to relax. I'm going to breathe. Tell yourself affirmations. Breathe. What this does is you are actively changing the state of the chemicals in your brain. You are lowering cortisol levels. You are lowering your adrenaline, right? Because these chemicals, what do? They actually put you into fight or flight. And what good does fight or flight do if you're stuck in your car? No good at all. So it is better to actively change the neurochemical state of the brain with intentional positivity. Now, how do you recognize and combat negativity? Again, negativity is any thought, speech, or action that is enacted with the intention to dull, diminish, or destroy positive emotions and or environments. And yes, negative thoughts can be intentional. They can be unintentional, but choosing to engage in them and ruminate on them instead of forcefully thinking of positive thoughts is a choice as well. And what does ruminate mean? Ruminate means that you think about it over and over and over. You can't let it go. You just are obsessively thinking negative things. That's rumination. Do you have the urge to uplift or cause pain or destruction? Do you know how to recognize when someone is saying or doing something for you that brings you feelings of safety, contentment, or joy? Are you able to do or say things for others that causes them to feel safe and also give you feelings of fulfillment in the action? Remember, thinking, feeling, saying, doing things that cause feelings of safety, Contentment, peace, or goodwill are ways to engage in intentional positivity. We're repeating this again. Why? Because repetition makes it stick in the brain. So, something very interesting takes place once you have chosen the path of intentional positivity. You will begin to notice environments and situations where others are engaging excessively in negativity. This is something very normal for humans, right? If you say you go out and you buy a red car and you start driving a red car, pretty soon all you see on the road is red cars. Why? Because your brain has been triggered to notice red cars now. The same thing with positivity. Once you have decided to be intentional in your positivity, you will become more aware of positive situations and people who are engaging in positivity. You will also become increasingly aware of negativity. Why? Because your sensitivity towards watching those interactions will be triggered to in order for you to be able to address those, right? If you intentionally decide, I'm going to be positive every day, or I'm going to be positive today, because if you're just starting out deciding to be intentionally positive, you have to take it one day at a time, right? We all mess up. So if you decide today I'm going to be intentionally positive and you're working on having positive thoughts, you're going to notice as soon as someone is negative. If they're saying, oh man, that person sucks, and you're trying to be positive and have positive thoughts, right? You're going to say, ooh, that's negativity. You're immediately going to notice it. How do you combat this? You practice what I like to call intentional positive avoidance. What does this look like? Well, when someone is engaging in negativity, for example, talking bad about someone, talking negative about someone, tune them out, avoid them, ignore them. Flood your space, your environment, your mind, and your spirit with positive affirmations and thoughts. Why do you do this? Number one, because when you engage in negative thoughts, your spirit starts to run on a negative frequency. You start thinking negative thoughts about everyone. Why? Because it becomes a habit. If you're thinking, oh, Susie does this, that, and the other, pretty soon you're going to think, oh, yeah, Bob does this, that, and the other too. And all of a sudden your mind is mired, it's bogged down in negativity. Instead of saying, Susie is always doing this, that, and the other, you could say, wow, okay, so I'm going to engage in thoughts about the thing that I'm going to do right now that is going to be positive. I'm going to write an affirmation down. Yes, Susie just got on my nerves, but that's okay. I don't need to deal with Susie right now. I'm going to handle what I need to do. I'm going to focus on the thoughts that I want to have to make me feel peaceful and happy. That prevents you from getting bogged down in negative thoughts and ruminating in negative thoughts. Make the choice to enact positive, uplifting speech and actions instead of listening to the poison. Remember, you hold the power to uplift your spirit when others are wallowing in darkness. Only you can make that decision. No one can make that decision for you. No one can force you to be positive. It's impossible, right? You have to make the decision yourself. You have to decide that you want to be positive. So, manifest positivity, make that choice. Taking hold of the power of intentional positivity is literally the first step to changing your life. It is literally the first step to changing your life. Why? Because positivity triggers chemical states in the brain that literally improve your mental, emotional, and even physical well being. It doesn't happen accidentally. It is something intentional that you do. It happens when you make the choice to move through the world with positivity. Yes, negative emotions happen, they're natural, but you can forcefully engage in positive thoughts and behaviors to combat them. And if you truly want to change, but for genetic or chemical reasons are unable to on your own, there are other ways to move forward with assistance in a better way of life. And we discussed this last week, but I always want to touch on it again. Depression and anxiety are real. There are certain psychological diagnoses, such as schizophrenia, that are real. These type of diagnoses, most of the time, must have assistance, medical attention. So if you have, say, depression or anxiety and you've had it for a very long time, there is no shame in going to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a doctor and saying, I need assistance. It is best for you to do that to start experiencing a better way of living. Now, yes, negative situations and people exist. That is life. But you can forcefully remove them from your presence. Ha ha ha, no violence, okay? And when I say remove from your presence, I don't mean, because say you might be in a work environment, right, where you don't have the ability to like kick them out the door, right? But what you can do is you can shut off your mind to them. You can shut off your emotions to them. You can basically create a boundary between the psychological uh, the psychological time and effort and energy that you are willing to give that person. I have worked in spaces with people that I simply just would say one or two words to them and go on about my day. No other connection than that. Why? Because they were negative and I didn't want to suffer that negativity. I was polite. I still interacted in order to get the work done. But when someone is engaging in negativity, you don't have to engage in negativity with them. You don't. So affirm your place on this plane and choose to move with intentional positivity. Avoid, ignore negative environments, situations, and people. If that isn't possible, engage in self care, affirmations, and positive actions, behaviors toward yourself and others as soon as possible. Remember, especially if you are in a work environment where you are stuck working around negative people like every day, you have to take care of yourself. You have to intentionally engage in self care. Affirmations, moments where you just take time to sit by yourself in a quiet space, positive, intentional, positive actions and behaviors that you engage and that you perform in order to create feelings of fulfillment. Those are extremely important. Self care is a mandatory part of intentional positivity. Utilize your purpose with positivity to constantly affirm your place on this plane. Radiate positivity, kindness, and experience personal fulfillment while making your environment a better place. Now, the one thing that I do want to say is that purpose and positivity really do have to go together. Now, you can have your purpose and be a negative person, but you will burn out at times. You will experience extreme bouts of anxiety. You will experience extreme bouts of rage, depression, negative emotions. Why? Because there's not the positivity to combat it. Positivity is a must when you are engaging in your purpose. So that is the tiny talk. That is basically the talk on manifesting positivity for today. And I just want to thank everyone who might have joined in to listen. I want to thank you for attending, and we will probably be back next week. So thank you again.